Welcome, wanderer of the lands between. Let the clamour of later ages soften for a while. The clang of Laendale's wars, the sermons of gold, the quarrels of demigods and their corrupted ambition. Set them aside. For tonight, we speak of an elder dominion, one that did not need crowns of sunlight to prove itself. We speak of stone and storm. We speak of the ancient dragons. And before you surrender yourself to the quiet of sleep, if you find comfort in these journeys through the forgotten ages of the lands between, consider subscribing to the channel. It is a small gesture, but it helps this little library of lost histories continue to grow. Now, make yourself comfortable. Let the world beyond your screen grow distant, and together, let us return to an age before the Erd Tree, an age when dragons ruled the skies. Preachers who serve the Erd Tree like to claim their golden age was the true beginning of the world. They preach as if the first golden beam struck the earth and brought order to a land that was empty, nameless, and dark. They want people to believe that nothing of value existed before grace arrived. Yet the lands between hold an ancient past that no holy sermon can erase or wash away. If you search for the oldest memory preserved in these lands, a memory formed long before the singers of Leyndell composed their first hymns, you find a region high above the world. Up there, thick clouds drift like floating continents. Lightning does not strike the earth and vanish in an instant. It stays alive in the sky, twining through the air as if the storm itself has learned how to speak. Moving through that tempest are dragons that move with the heavy patience of walking mountains. Their skin lacks the soft sheen of younger beasts. Their hides consist of a stone-like substance that remembers the early days of the world. We call them ancient dragons because their bodies carry age in the exact way granite carries age. Their scales are nothing like the thin plates seen on modern drakes. Their hides are formed from heavy slabs, rough gravel, and solid rock, creating the kind of armor a mountain cliff might form if it learned to draw breath. Scholars say these stone scales hold time itself within their structure. Whether you view that idea as poetry or as plain fact, the feeling remains identical when you stand before one. You realize you are looking at a living creature whose life moves on a completely different scale than human life. Their presence rests heavy upon the earth and refuses to be swept away by the passage of years. These creatures do not belong to the story of the Erd Tree. They were never its offspring. They were never its holy servants. They were never wild beasts cast out and hunted down by golden armies. Their bloodline was already old when gold first rose across the sky. In time, men learned to give a name to the force these dragons commanded. They called it Red Lightning, a scarlet bolt summoned by pure thought and thrown like a heavy spear. That red color holds a clear clue. It speaks of an older law of nature, one that governed the world long before the Golden Order arrived to paint everything in gold. Red lightning was the sacred weapon and true mark of the ancient dragons, a miracle that younger dragons in later ages could never master again. If you follow that red lightning back to its source, you must travel across stone ruins that hover in the air rather than resting upon the earth. Following that path brings you at last to a place the world remembers, even when modern history tries to pretend it has forgotten. Crumbling Farum Azula. There are common ruins scattered across the earth, and then there is Farum Azula. Farum Azula is broken into pieces, yet it continues to endure. Its holy shrines have been shattered like dry bones. Its stone bridges are snapped in half and hang suspended over empty air. Its courtyards lie completely open to the wind and sky. Even so, the ruined city refuses to fall into the sea below. It drifts in mid-air, held aloft by an ancient power that has nothing to do with mortar or human faith. In such a place, your eyes are deceived at every turn. Floating stones rest in places where no pillar supports them. Cold air flows with deliberate purpose through open hallways. The sky feels strange and close, as if the land itself has folded inward. As you walk through this impossible city, you pass carved beasts and fallen sanctums. You pass inner halls where red lightning scorched the stone walls into smooth glass. Beyond those burnt halls lies a swirling storm that bends time itself. At the center of that storm, in a quiet chamber that feels like an empty throne room, sits a dragon lord. The ancient dragons do more than simply inhabit Farum Azula. They define its purpose in every wall and archway. The stone carvings speak their language through stone spirals and carved scales. You see their sharp talons and wide wings shaped into the ornaments of the temples. Every tower reaches upward toward the high sky, building into the storm to get closer to the divine. Their presence is carved so deeply into the masonry that you cannot easily tell whether dragons settled in the clouds first, or if the stone ruin rose up into the air to meet them. Even so, Farum Azula feels like a survivor of a lost war. It resembles a fortress that endured a crisis it was never expected to survive. A heavy silence rests over the city, like a sacred altar after its holy relics have been taken away. That silence grows heavier when you learn the title preserved in old stories, that in an era long before the Erdtree, these lands had an Elden Lord. This was a different kind of Elden Lord than the ones taught in later Golden Order history. The Golden Priests taught that an Elden Lord was a champion, a warrior, and a consort standing beside a golden deity. In that older age, leadership had a different meaning entirely, as if order itself wore a completely different face. The name tied to that ancient rule belonged to no human man. That ruler was Dragon Lord Placidusax. That title alone carries immense weight. He was called Dragon Lord. He was far more than a wild dragon or a fierce beast of nature. He was a true king who governed his own kind. Beyond that, he was the ruler who held the world's highest authority, the same authority that later generations would call by other names and represent with different symbols. Stories identify him as the Elden Lord before the Erdtree took root. That fact opens up endless questions that the world refuses to answer clearly. A title like Elden Lord proves that an order existed back then. If an order existed, then a true god presided over it. Ancient records state that Placidusax was the consort of a god who fled. That distinction matters greatly. This god was never killed in battle. This god was never overthrown from a throne or destroyed by rival faiths. The god simply departed, vanished, and went elsewhere. Yet Placidusax, king of all dragons, remains waiting in his storm. He waits with the slow patience of mountain rock, firmly believing that the world will one day return to the shape it once possessed. Few sights in the lands between carry as much weight as that endless waiting. This waiting is built on pure persistence rather than quiet hope. It is a stubborn refusal to accept that the old world is finished. The body of the Dragon Lord shows deep scars from time and ancient conflicts. Yet he does not carry his wounds like a lesser beast. He is missing limbs and heads, a monarch reduced in strength, but he still maintains a quiet majesty that commands respect. Old legends speak of his many heads. When you see him resting at the center of the timeless storm, you understand that dragons were created to look exactly like this. Having many heads was a sign of imperial power rather than a strange flaw. A creature like this could look toward every direction at once, speak through multiple throats, and enforce the ruler's will across an entire realm without turning its body. Even a mighty lord like Placidusax can experience great loss over the ages. A lord who commands thunder can still lose parts of his own form in battle. A king can be left with only memories of his true strength and the faint memory of a god who once answered his calls. When you study the carved stonework throughout Farum Azula, you see the honor given to these creatures. The statues and wall carvings present dragons as holy guardians and sacred leaders who were approached with deep reverence. You find none of the bitter hatred that later ages cultivated when kings began using fear to control their people. The artwork here avoids bragging about conquest. It shows a world of shared harmony. Dragons were never viewed as foreign invaders. They stood as one of the true pillars of the natural world. Dragons were not the sole residents of this floating realm. Farum Azula belongs equally to the beastmen, creatures covered in fur and armed with sharp fangs, who walk on two legs in a way that resembles humans. They carry curved blades and wear rough armor. They wander through shattered temples like loyal guardians whose original duties ended long ago. Their existence holds a sad weight, because they are far more than wild beasts that learned how to fight. They were animals granted real intelligence. Long before the Erd Tree took root, long before human kingdoms built tall walls to protect themselves, an event occurred where wild beasts were given intelligence. The artifacts left behind from that era remain like frozen marks in history, showing an early act of world order. It was the deliberate shaping of animal thought, turning raw instinct into conscious purpose. When you examine the daggers and stone items carried by these beastmen, you see evidence of that initial gift. It is as if a higher power reached down and lifted the minds of beasts, teaching them to look forward and aim higher. In Farum Azula, this gift of intelligence did not create human cities or stone kingdoms. It led directly to service. The beastmen do not sit on thrones, they attend to the needs of the temple. They serve as the caretakers who maintain the broken sanctuaries, the guards who protect the city walls, and the voices that sing hymns in halls where the ancient gods no longer speak. Living under the protection of the dragons, they became a distinct community. If you listen closely, you can hear their chanting carried through the winds of the storm. They devote their lives to an empty throne and serve a lord who waits in a timeless realm for a god who will never return. That stubborn loyalty explains how Farum Azula continues to float in the sky today. When a sanctuary is held together by active worship, it does not crumble easily, even when the rest of the world tries to forget it. In this ancient era, the dragons seemed less like ordinary creatures and more like living forces of nature. Their bodies merged stone and lightning, scale and tempest. Their red lightning showed their close bond with divine power. Ordinary lightning in nature is unpredictable and strikes without reason, taking lives indiscriminately. Ancient dragons controlled that power directly. They called down thunderbolts and bent them into spears that struck with clear intent. In later ages, human warriors attempted to copy that red lightning through formal prayers and incantations, turning faith into a physical weapon. For ancient dragons, Invoking lightning was as natural as taking breath. This ancient age can be difficult for human minds to fully grasp. It forces us to accept that the highest laws of the world were once held by creatures who shared no human form. Later eras insisted that true authority must look a certain way. They demanded a central throne, a crown, a stone capital, and a deity whose mark was stamped on coins and army banners. The ancient age offers no such familiar comfort. Its power lived in rolling storms and stone scales. Its capital was a floating sanctuary built among clouds. Its lord was a dragon waiting for a vanished god. If an order existed back then, it had no need for the Erd tree. If a holy center existed, it was not a golden tree. Authority meant following the natural rhythm of life itself, a system that was patient and fierce, preserving the world's ancient pulse inside a broken realm that exists outside normal time. This distinction explains why ancient dragons seem so different from the wild drakes wandering the lands between. Drakes are driven by hunger. They crouch on broken hillsides like petty lords, holding power over nothing. They spout fire, gather corpses, and hoard minor trinkets. Their wings beat with quick desperation, and their anger carries the bitter tone of a creature that fears death. The ancient dragons share none of that fear. When engaged in battle, they move as if death cannot touch them. Their red lightning serves as a clear proclamation of power. Every single movement they make brings majesty to their battles, turning every strike into a deliberate display of strength. Their most important trait was their scales of gravelstone. These hard scales provided the secret to their everlasting life. History holds a sharp irony here. Those same scales, which gave them immortality, can be ground into a grease that inflicts great harm upon dragons. Ancient records describing weapons carved from a dragon's cragblade dismiss the two-winged dragons of the modern age. They describe modern drakes as little more than mortal birds compared to their immortal ancestors. How did these scales grant endless life? The secret rests within a golden gravelstone taken from Placidusax himself. Stories tell that time bends inside this stone, moving backward and forward at once. Forging a weapon from such a scale creates a blade capable of slaying a god. Time itself stands as the only true weakness of an immortal being. This leaves us with a lingering question. Does a weapon of time erase a deity completely, or does it simply speed them toward being forgotten? This strange warping of time fills the air of Farum Azula. The entire city floats in a space where day and night do not exist. Only the endless storm roars around its towers. This power reaches its peak in the city center, inside the arena where Dragon Lord Placidusax waits. Entering that domain requires a specific ritual. You must lie down inside an empty grave at the edge of the storm. In that moment, you leave your normal place in the world and join the ruin itself. Time stops completely and turns backward. The broken stones rebuild themselves around you, returning you to the great plaza where the Dragon Lord once commanded the sky outside of time. You can never locate Farum Azula by looking at a map. It floats detached from the earth, a crumbling sanctuary drifting inside a storm that never ends. You cannot choose to walk to this city or climb a mountain to reach it. Arriving there means being transported by power, pulled out of your normal life and placed inside its broken reality. The lands between provide only one brief view of this place beforehand. At the four belfries, a magical portal opens onto a floating piece of the structure, showing a disconnected tower against a stormy sky. This view serves two clear purposes. It confirms that this strange realm exists, and it warns travelers to stay far away. The floating city, caught in permanent ruin, does not welcome guests. Reaching the full city requires a massive event that bends the world itself. That moment occurs at the Forge of the Giants, where an ancient fire burns and a severe sin can be committed. After lighting that flame and sealing the fate of the Erd Tree, the Tarnished receive no road to travel. Instead, they are swept away by unseen forces. They wake up inside Farum Azula, moved across an immense distance that cannot be measured in miles. Yet, this dramatic event is not the only way in. You meet other determined warriors within its halls, such as Knight Bernal, proving that the city also draws in those whose strong vows have cut them off from normal life. Only inside Farum Azula, within the Dragon Lord's silent arena, can a person defy fate and strip a god of its power. Miquella crafted his needle of pure gold for his sister, Melania. She suffered under the Scarlet Rot, a physical mark imposed by an outer god that was destroying her from within. Miquella built the needle to stop that parasitic force and protect her mind from being erased. The item serves as a tool designed to preserve identity against the claim of a god. Inside the arena of Placidusax, that invention reaches its full potential. The frenzied flame is no simple curse, it is a total destruction of the self, branded onto a person's will by another outer god. The needle provides the only cure for such corruption. It requires a location where normal rules are weak and cause and effect no longer hold sway. Within the timeless storm, the needle can alter fate itself. It allows the bearer to quiet the burning fire within and reclaim their lost freedom. Farum Azula stands as a sanctuary where even divine power can be undone. The shattered state of Farum Azula points to an ancient disaster, yet the true details of that event remain hidden. The city crumbles, yet it remains suspended in mid-air. It decays, yet it exists outside normal time. It is as if the world tried to smash the city and failed, settling for isolating it instead. The world removed Farum Azula from history, so it could neither exist fully nor disappear entirely. The world gives us no view of that original ruin. We see only the aftermath, a broken sanctuary held inside a storm, and a lord who never stopped waiting for a god who fled and will never return. The Golden Order held deep scorn for the ancient world that came before its rise. Its leaders did not simply ignore past history. They worked actively to bury every primordial trace beneath stone and lore. When gold grew proud enough to declare that its reign would last forever, the sky answered. The ancient dragons responded to that boast as they always had, using wings, stone scales, and red lightning. In Leyndell, the inhabitants knew ordinary dangers. They understood outland bandits, rival leaders, and the wild threat of untamed beasts. Yet this new danger felt entirely different. The wind changed direction without warning, and the sky felt low, pressing down on the city like a heavy lid. The capital was young in those days, yet it already possessed immense pride. It sat directly beneath the Erd Tree like a favored child. Its grand avenues were laid out with clear intent. Its stone walls were built on the belief that physical barriers could keep all external threats outside. Golden light filled every ritual, and priests in the high sanctums spoke with total confidence that the world possessed a single center, and that center belonged to Leyndell. Then, thick clouds gathered above the towers, moving fast and heavy with intent. Storms occur frequently across the lands between, yet most storms arrive by chance. This tempest arrived like a direct declaration of war. Violent gusts swept through narrow streets and beneath heavy doors, tearing at fabric banners and pulling tiles from rooftops. The wind whipped altar smoke into tight spirals and blew against oil lamps until the city lights flickered in their stone bowls. Inside that darkening air, the lightning revealed its true nature. It shone red, like a fresh wound opened across the sky. The bolts did not strike at random. They traced sharp lines across the clouds, writing warnings for those who knew how to read them. The initial strikes hit the highest structures in Leyndell, targeting the pride of the city. Tall spires, defensive parapets, and golden statues built to honor the Erd Tree. The citizens of Leyndell looked up at the sky. For the first time in an age that believed itself protected by a tree of light, the people witnessed a massive beast whose wings could block out the sun. That dragon was Gransax. Even today, his name carries immense weight in historical records. He was a great dragon whose size made lesser drakes look like small imitations. He did not appear instantly in the sky, for a creature of such size moves with heavy slowness. People slowly accepted what their eyes saw. The black shape filling the sky was not a dark cloud or a mountain shadow. It was a living beast with wings wide enough to create night. The defenders of Leyndell had standard training, defensive plans, and regimented banners. They knew how to block an army at the city gate, pour hot oil from walls, and shoot disciplined volleys of arrows. None of those tactics mattered when the threat came from above. Their initial defense was born of pure desperation. Guard ranks lined the high walls with lifted shields, while siege crews cranked heavy ballistae into place. The city turned its proud weapons upward toward the storm. Iron bolts as thick as tree trunks soared into the sky, yet they sank into dark clouds and heavy scale with the impact of light raindrops. Then, Gransax attacked. Ancient records state simply that when he struck the capital, the walls of Leyndell collapsed. The stone walls meant to stand for centuries cracked like brittle bone. Deep foundations shook as if the ground beneath the city had broken apart. High towers leaned, snapped, and fell into paved streets that were built for royal parades. Those avenues were filled with broken rubble, bright fire, and screaming citizens. Then came the spear. This was no exaggerated story. It was a giant bolt of red lightning, shaped with the same sharp art that ancient dragons brought to battle. The bolt did more than strike the earth. It cut through the sky like a pointed spear, leaving a red streak that made the storm twist violently. Capital historians preserved that day in a massive relic that still shapes Leyndell's skyline. The Bolt of Gransax, a giant spear lodged deep in the stone bones of the city. Even standing still, it looks ready to strike again, like thunder pinned to the ground. Standing under it reminds mortals how fragile human architecture really is. The walls fell because no stone barrier can withstand living lightning when the storm itself seeks your destruction. Yet, Leyndell did not fall that day. The Erd Tree did not burn out and die. The Age of Gold survived beneath the shadow of draconic wings. The attack by Gransax marked the start of a conflict known as the War against the Ancient Dragons. During this war, the Golden Order responded in its typical fashion when threatened. It united its followers under a single crusade of righteousness, demanding that every blade, every prayer, and every loyal soldier serve that cause. The ancient dragons were not raiders seeking farmlands or tribute. Their existence directly challenged the Erdtree's claim of total supremacy. The capital could tolerate outland bandits, rebels, or foreign lords because those enemies still understood the capital's rules of power. They merely fought over land. The ancient dragons represented something different. They stood as living proof that the world had been governed under a different law, that the sky belonged to storms, and that an elden lord had served a vanished god long ago. Their presence raised a question the Golden Order could never comfortably answer. The Golden Order decided that steel would provide their answer. The armies of Leyndell marched out to protect their city walls and to demonstrate that golden power could shatter ancient stone. Soldiers carried holy blessings, incantations, and the authority of Queen Marika. They believed that Erdtree's favour was an absolute truth across the world. For those who marched under the Golden Banner, winning meant validating their faith. Ancient dragons did not fight like mortal men. They ignored organised battlefields and refused to form defensive lines. When they descended from the sky, they brought destruction across the entire landscape. Their massive wings altered the winds, while their red lightning tore up the earth. Formations dissolved when lightning spears rained down from above. Yet despite their majestic strength, the dragons were not invincible. The long war proved that truth in blood and broken scales. Mortals discovered that solid stone cracks if struck repeatedly, and even beings outside normal time will bleed when wounded. During those years of thunder and ash, a leader emerged whose name became tied to gold, Godwyn the Golden. Among the many figures produced by the Erdtree, Godwyn stood apart as one whose radiance seemed natural. As a son of Queen Marika, he carried authority with ease. His name felt like a promise of true nobility. While other demigods would later become associated with hunger, rot, blood, or pride, Godwyn was remembered for honour and golden grace. In wartime, nobility often serves as a disguise for brutality. Yet Godwyn's tale took an unexpected path. His most famous moment in the war was not slaying a beast and standing over the corpse with a raised sword. It was the moment he chose mercy instead. Fortisax rose to meet him in battle, a great dragon who had fought alongside Gransax during the assault. Their duel is remembered as a turning point in the war. Modern listeners might picture a simple fight: golden power against storm, a demigod against red lightning, leading to a clean victory. Yet ancient records do not record the death of Fortisax. They speak of his defeat, followed by something far more surprising: friendship. History rarely uses a word like friendship to describe two enemies after a war. Following a war that should have left behind nothing except hatred and bloodshed, Godwyn and Fortisax formed a genuine bond. The ancient dragon was never dragged to the Erdtree in heavy chains. Soldiers did not skin his hide to decorate a cathedral. He did not retreat into the wilderness to nurse his wounds and plot revenge. Instead, he took on an unexpected role as an ally to the Golden Realm that had fought his kind. Labeling this agreement as mere political strategy feels far too small. While politics touch every decision near a throne, this connection grew from something deeper. It was a mutual recognition that happens when two powerful fighters face each other in battle and recognize true strength. Godwyn killed Gransax, and he defeated Fortisax as well. Yet he chose to spare Fortisax's life. Sparing the dragon sent a clear message to all dragon kind. The age of the Erdtree possessed the capacity for mercy alongside conquest. It served as a warning to Leyndell too, reminding the Golden City that victory should not make them arrogant. Whatever the original motive, the result changed history. It did not wipe away past deaths or end every conflict across the lands, yet it created a bridge where storm and gold could meet without, attempting to destroy each other. Along that shared border, something new began to take shape. Before that war, citizens in Leyndell did not worship ancient dragons. They viewed dragons as wild beasts of the sky whose existence threatened their golden rule. After Godwyn established his bond with Fortisax, that relationship transformed. The storm was not banished. Instead, priests invited the storm directly into the city's capital faith. This shift reveals a core strength of the Golden Order, its ability to absorb its enemies rather than simply destroying them. Absorbing a power tames that power. The Order places it inside sacred doctrine, creates formal prayers for it, and declares that a former enemy was always part of the Golden Plan. Gold turns storm power into holy worship. Yet this change was not one-sided. Ancient dragons were not common drakes to be locked away. They did not become passive statues in stone windows. Their lightning remained wild at the edges, requiring reverence and caution from any mortal who sought to use it. Fortisax's alliance served as living proof that ancient dragons could stand beside Leyndell without destroying its walls. His presence proved that red lightning could be wielded without betraying the light of the Erd Tree. Faithful citizens looked upon him and saw proof that their Golden Order was wide enough to contain the storm. Beyond all political arrangements, Fortisax held deep friendship and loyalty toward Godwyn, refusing to abandon his companion even in the darkest hours after death. We remember the tragic assassination of Godwyn when assassins pressed the rune of death into his body. The attack destroyed his soul while leaving his flesh alive. From that lifeless body, Deathroot began to grow, spreading like a blight through the soil of the lands between. Though Godwyn was lost, Fortisax refused to give up on his friend. The dragon entered Godwyn's nightmare, a dark realm born of undeath, to battle the corruption festering inside his friend's mind. Fortisax fought a losing war in that dreamscape, and the blight began infecting his own stone scales. Yet he never surrendered. When you encounter him inside that dream, he fights with a fierce rage aimed at the state of undeath and anyone who serves its power. Another ancient dragon shared this capacity for love. While humans sought to draw closer to dragons, one dragon chose to draw closer to humanity. Her name was Lanciax, sister to Fortisax. Ages ago, she assumed the form of a human priestess so she could walk among the knights of the new dragon cult. This act formed a mirror to dragon communion. Instead of a human giving up their body to become a dragon changed her shape to walk like a human. Records suggest this connection grew from personal love. Among all the capital knights, she felt closest to Vike, the dragon spear. Because of her favor, Vike commanded a unique power, red lightning that coated his body and spear, a gift once reserved only for the beastmen who served dragons in a forgotten age. It remains remarkable that this warrior, so favored by a dragon and central to the cult, came so close to becoming Elden Lord. Lanciax and her devotion to Vike change how we view ancient dragons. Her story demonstrates that these creatures were far more than wild monsters or distant deities. They were beings capable of personal devotion and love. This truth clarifies the fierce loyalty seen across dragonkind. Fortisax's battle inside Godwyn's nightmare was more than an obligation to an alliance. It stood as a direct act of love, a friend attempting to rescue another from a nightmare at the cost of his own mind. Understanding their capacity for devotion exposes the sadness at the heart of Dragonlord Placidusax's story. Placidusax held the title of Elden Lord long before the Erd Tree existed, building his entire life upon a sacred vow with his god. Yet that god departed, leaving him to govern an empty sanctuary at the center of a storm outside time. He does more than wait in silence. He continues to honor a vow that has been broken, a loyal king guarding a throne for a deity that will never return. When you, a tarnished warrior, step into that quiet arena, you act as more than a mere intruder. You bring the resolution Placidusax never foresaw, closing a tale that remained paused for centuries. The encounter serves as the necessary climax that permits his ancient vigil to end. His remembrance is then offered to the Erd Tree, uniting the final fragment of an older age with the golden power that took its place. The body of Grandsax and his giant spear never vanished from Leyndell. They remained as a lasting testament that the capital walls had fallen once and could crumble again. The stone remnant served as a warning to human pride, showing that no realm, regardless of its brightness, stands safe from the ancient forces of the world. Citizens. Walking underneath that spear felt two contrasting emotions in their chest. Fear regarding the destruction their city endured, and pride that their people survived it. Surviving such destruction transformed how people viewed their faith. Before the war, the light of the Erd Tree seemed like a gentle truth that needed no protection. After the dragon invasion, that light resembled a fortress. It became something to guard, something that faced real danger, and therefore a power demanding complete loyalty. At the same time, the war altered how dragons existed across the lands between. The ancient dragons were defeated in battle and driven far from Leyndell's high gates. Yet, defeating an enemy differs from total destruction. Their bloodline did not vanish from these lands. They endured in hidden sanctuaries and isolated skies. Their presence reflected the strange result of the conflict, creating a tense coexistence where neither side could erase the other. This fragile balance, a golden order scarred by battle alongside a storm that refused to die, allowed devotion to develop along unexpected paths. If a golden demigod could form a friendship with an ancient dragon, the nature of power was far more complex than priests taught. If an ancient dragon could take human shape and converse with capital knights, the line separating wild beasts from noble lords was no longer clear. The Golden Order preferred simple doctrines because simple rules are easy to enforce. Yet, the world grew complicated, refusing to fit into simple stories. Inside Leyndell, faith began to center around the ancient dragons. Citizens viewed them as holy allies whose red lightning could be blessed and used in battle. The knights who joined this dragon cult practiced a rugged faith, forged by warriors who faced a violent storm and decided to master its power. They studied the Tempest in the same way priests studied sacred texts. They treated red lightning as an ancient form of holiness instead of a forbidden heresy. Standing beneath the golden branches of the Erd Tree, they spoke prayers filled with ancient secrets that existed before the lands between were born. When you travel across Caelid, you will encounter her, the Great Mother Greyoll, a massive heap of flesh drawing her final breaths while surrounded by her brood. Legends name her the mother of all mortal dragons. She is distinct from the ancient dragons, possessing 2 wings and no stone scales. She stands as the parent of the modern dragon lines found across the lands between: fire drakes, frost worms, rot dragons, and glintstone worms, all trace their lineage back to her body. These creatures are wyverns, simplified versions of the four-legged dragons of antiquity. They adapt to the environments around them, yet one ancient gift was lost to them forever: the red lightning of their forebears. Gravel stones, the fallen scales of ancient dragons, remain scattered across lands where those beasts once flew. Travelers find many upon the Altus Plateau, near the capital city where dragons once fought. Surprisingly, many gravel stones also lie across Caelid. Their presence in Caelid, along with grand structures like the Bestial Sanctum and the Farum Great Bridge, points to a firm connection with the floating city. These stone buildings remain structurally whole. They were constructed directly upon the earth, rather than falling from the sky. This evidence leads to a clear conclusion. Farum Azula once stood firmly on the ground, occupying the land that later became Caelid. How did the city ascend into the sky? Old tales offer two explanations. One tale speaks of a purple meteorite that struck the city, filling its stones with gravitational magic that lifted the land without destroying its buildings. The other story claims the dragons caused the event themselves. Placidusax may have used his storm power to lift the sanctuary into the sky as a desperate defense, after which a falling star struck the city and broke it into fragments that still rain down today. Whatever the truth, the physical remains in Caelid align with Greyoll's history. She represents the mother of all modern dragons, the first of her kind to lose stone scales. Her location in Caelid, beside intact walls and scattered scales, proves that ancient dragons once inhabited that ground, leaving Greyoll as a land-bound legacy when their city rose into the clouds. The tale of dragonkind continues upon the earth. Near the sites of dragon communion, two ancient dragons rest completely silent. Though their scales brought everlasting life, immortality never protected them from death in battle. We can only wonder what force possessed enough strength to slay them. Seeing their fallen bodies brings our thoughts back to Greyoll. Even as a mortal beast, her size inspired wonder. She was a mountain of flesh and grief, larger than any dragon of her era, exceeding even the Dragon Lord in scale. Only colossal Gransax, whose remains lie draped over Leyndell, and the giant skeleton preserved in Farum Azula's temple rivaled her size. This brings a quiet thought that she and that preserved giant may have been mates long ago, in an era before their world broke apart. We do not know the original cause of her tragedy, why she and her descendants lost the stone scales of their ancestors. Perhaps she was born with an inherent flaw, a physical blight that separated her from her immortal kin. That condition might explain why she made her dwelling in the lands between. Was this territory a place of exile, or a place to die? The region she occupies is named Dragon Barrow. A barrow is a burial mound built over a forgotten grave. This territory was always intended as a final graveyard for newly mortal dragons. Now, Greyoll is nearing her end. Scarlet rot has infected all of Caelid, and Dragon Barrow offers no escape. When you find her, she is a dying behemoth, so weakened that she cannot fight back or lift her heavy head. Her roars represent a desperate plea, calling her children together in a futile attempt at defense. Yet, those young dragons cannot protect their mother from a tarnished driven by a desire for power, who intends to harvest the remnants of her immense strength. High in the mountaintops of the giants, where bitter winds scour the rocks down to their ancient foundations, these peaks remember an age when different leaders held power. The evidence exists in the form of freezing breath, a dense fog that freezes the earth solid. This mist turns movement into stiff hesitation, threatening skin and muscle with sudden fractures. Ice dragons once commanded those frozen heights long ago, until the fire giants forced them out. History in the lands between presents that fact plainly. though driving dragons from cliffs and blizzards requires immense strength. The giants endured freezing storms and answered with intense heat, using an ancient flame capable of burning even where cold air attempts to extinguish every spark. These peaks served as a site for shifting power. First, the dragons surrendered the mountains to the fire giants. Later, those same fire giants were defeated and bound under the authority of the Golden Order. Following those battles, other cold forces made their presence known. The warriors of Zamor moved through white blizzards like sharp blades, carrying an ice curse within their curved swords and deliberate movements. This high region binds many separate strands of history together. Its height brings it close to the night sky, and altitude has always drawn the curious across these lands. Ancient astrologers once made their homes on these peaks, reading the night stars to discern fate. Their presence remains recorded in heirlooms tied to the Carian family line, proving that scholars from Liurnia once looked northward toward the cold clarity of the mountain air. Though fire ended the reign of the ice dragons, their cold power remained across the world. Frost endured as a physical weapon, as a foundation for later spells, and as a combat technique handed down across generations. Knowledge in these lands often moves silently, like a torch through fog, persisting long after its original creators have vanished. When scholars speak of Ranni's frost, of the chill that surrounds her legacy and follows her path, they describe a power rooted in ancient history. Her cold is no sudden discovery. It belongs to a long lineage of frost that lived in the mountaintops, in the swords of Zamor, and in the memory of ancient dragons who once commanded winter storms. Yet, the story of dragonkind does not remain neatly divided by element. Certain dragons chose not to fight over mountain peaks. They turned their hunger toward the glintstone scholars of Liurnia, hunting the blue energy collected by sorcerers. That appetite carried a specific cruelty. Creatures whose ancestors once owned the sky, preying upon mortals who studied the stars. Over time, that diet altered those dragons, turning their breath into pure sorcery. Smaragd earned the title of Sorcerer Devourer, a name describing his diet and its physical result. His breath releases glintstone energy, a blue stream of magic blasted through lungs constructed for war. This power stands apart from the pale fog of ice dragons and the red lightning of ancient beasts. It demonstrates how dragonkind transforms through what it consumes. Adula stands as another glintstone dragon, yet her legend is tied directly to the moon. Her story is defined by a sacred oath. Records state that she became a sworn knight to Ranni the Witch. In the lands between, a dragon enters a vow only after martial strength has been proven in combat. Her allegiance reflects the earlier bond between Godwyn and Fortisax, proving that dragons still respect true authority when they encounter it. In this manner, frost, moonlit magic, and dragonkind became connected. The mountain frost, the ice curses of warriors, the sorcery cultivated in Liurnia, and the dragons themselves all shifted under the influence of their prey and their chosen leaders. When the narrative turns north toward the peaks, it encounters a harsh reality. White fog rolling across frozen earth, with a dragon moving inside like a walking storm. That dragon is Borealis, the freezing fog. In the present age, Borealis remains as a living survivor of that ancient rule. He breathes cold air into the sky, demonstrating that the peaks still belong to his bloodline. Around him, the fog thickens into a heavy veil that blocks sight and freezes mortal limbs. No other ice dragons remain on those heights. Fire destroyed most of their lineage long ago, leaving behind total silence. Even after defeat, dragon power endures across the world. It persists within cold, mist, and mountain warfare. It shows in how the Golden Order approached the northern peaks, using binding rituals instead of simple conquest. It appears in the moonlit traditions of Liurnia, where sorcery retains a cold edge. It lives in dragonkind's ability to adapt and absorb new elements. Speaking of ice dragons means recounting a major chapter in the war for the Northern Mountains. It describes an era when dragons held the heights, suffered defeat by fire giants, and left behind a legacy of cold for future generations. Throughout history, power never disappears entirely. It changes hands, adopts new forms, and survives inside weapons, breaths, and sacred vows. Certain dragons inherit the open sky, while others receive only the bitterness below it. Bale belonged to that second group. Tracing the bloodline of dragonkind reveals a clear divide. One branch leads toward the heavens, belonging to immortal beings who once commanded the sky. The other branch leads downward, into the anger and resentment of the earth. Bale was born from that lower branch. If you examine an ancient talisman carved with his image, it presents a simple tale of a monster. It remembers him as a vile dragon, a walking catastrophe whose raw shout could shake a peak until its inner lava spilled forth in an eruption. Yet, that image of a beast wrapped in volcanic fire is only the surface of his history. The flame that truly shaped Bale was lit long before he ever caused mountains to tremble. His fire burned inside him, fed by the open scorn of his own kind. The elder dragons called him Lowborn, speaking that word with complete contempt. They did not question his strength, for Bale was never weak. They considered his lineage common because he lacked the one gift the ancient dragons valued above all else: the divine grace of Gravelstone's scales. He entered the world without the time-bending immortality that made elder dragons feel like permanent laws of nature. Lacking that cold permanence defined the creature he became. Ancient dragons resembled distant stars that burn without needing fuel. Bale lived like a fierce bonfire. His life required fuel and continuous proof of his existence, sharpening his will into a weapon. Every breath he took was an assertion of power that expressed itself through violence. For a creature forged in such heat, defiance was his fundamental nature. Rebellion was the soil beneath his feet from birth. That burning resentment eventually drove Bale to commit an outrageous act. In an era lost to time, he directed his fury at the highest authority of his kind, Dragon Lord Placidusax. Placidusax belonged to a completely different order of existence. He sat enthroned at the center of a storm outside time, a living survivor of an ancient age. He endured the departure of his god with an unshakable stillness. His authority was a state of being, a quiet vigil for a deity who would never return. Bale did not enter that timeless chamber to ask for a place within the old hierarchy. He came to shatter that hierarchy entirely. His attack was a physical expression of defiance, a violent assertion that mortal flesh and burning rage possessed the right to strike down an order built on cold stone. No written histories record this massive duel. No songs were composed, and no scrolls were crafted to describe the clash between these two forces. The world remembers this conflict through physical scars, preserved in the broken bodies of both fighters. The outcome yielded no clean victory for either fighter. The confrontation left the Dragon Lord visibly diminished, permanently scarred, and stripped of his original form. Bale carries remains that resemble combat trophies, yet those marks are not prizes of war. They serve as physical proof of the heavy cost he paid during that shared destruction. As the ancient talisman plainly records, the duel concluded in severe injury. In his violent attempt to tear down the old order, Bale was nearly destroyed himself. Placidusax remained behind as a living monument to his own defeat. His ancient stone skin displays deep gashes across his body, and his long tail was severed down to a stump. The most severe wounds struck his crown. Of the 5 heads that once watched over his timeless kingdom, 3 were torn away in the fighting. In a final display of undying hatred, 2 of those severed heads remain clamped onto Bale's body today, their stone jaws locked in a grip that has endured for centuries. After inflicting those wounds and suffering equal harm in return, Bale made a fast retreat from the storm. The damage was done, raising a major question that lingers through history. Did this catastrophe finally drive the Dragon Lord's god to abandon the world? Did this internal rebellion shatter the foundation of their age, forcing Placidusax to retreat into his timeless sanctuary? The exact order of these events remains hidden in the past. The most disturbing detail of their duel persists into the present day. The surviving tale speaks of a brutal stalemate between the 2 beasts. 2 of the Dragon Lord's severed heads remain attached to Bale's hide, stone jaws locked in a bite of pure hatred. This hatred has survived across ages, refusing to let go as centuries pass. This detail reveals what Bale truly accomplished. He proved that the stone-scaled order could bleed. He demonstrated that the ancient lord, despite his timeless majesty, could be wounded, broken, and reduced in power. He inflicted a wound so deep that it would never heal, leaving a permanent mark on the history of dragonkind. Sensing that the surrounding world was turning against him, Bale fled. He retreated from the timeless storm, dragging the physical evidence of the Dragon Lord's ruin with him like a stolen relic. From that moment onward, the way ancient dragons viewed Bale changed forever. They no longer considered him an embarrassing relative. He had become a sworn enemy and a symbol of open rebellion. His entire bloodline, the Drakes born after him, was defined by that initial war. The Drakes carried that ancient hatred as clearly as they carried their wings and horns. The Stone Dragons, despite their immense pride, could never allow such a direct challenge to their order to go unanswered. Pride reaches its limit when facing an enemy that represents everything the ancient brood refuses to be. Bale was mortal, hungry, violent, and completely impossible to control. A sovereign who relies on timeless patience cannot easily overcome a creature driven by an urgent need for destruction. The ancient dragons possessed ages of time, yet Bale possessed a furious desire that burned through every encounter. Because of this, the response created by the ancient dragons avoided a simple war. They knew that meeting Bale in open combat again would only result in more shattered stone scales and severed limbs. They devised a subtle strategy instead. They built a clever trap, a dark lure designed to solve their problem through indirect means. To an outside observer, the ritual of dragon communion looks like a crude practice. It appears to spring from basic logic. Travelers across the lands between saw men looking up at the immense strength of dragons and deciding that simple worship was insufficient. Those warriors wished to take that power into their own flesh, swallowing it whole to make that strength their own. That idea holds some truth, because awe and hunger often exist together inside the human mind, driving mortals to seek powers far beyond their normal reach. Yet the underlying truth revealed at the stone altars by the dragon priestess is far colder than simple greed. The ancient dragons intentionally shaped dragon communion into a deadly weapon. It was an engineered trap created by the elder brood to exploit the strongest traits and worst flaws of mankind, their wild ambition and their reckless ferocity. Courage often springs from desperation rather than noble ideals. It represents the fierce resolve of a short-lived creature that realizes time is running out and cannot afford to wait. The ancient dragons possessed eternity to plot their moves. Mortals possessed only a brief appetite for life and authority. Within that basic contrast, Placidusax and those still loyal to his throne discovered the perfect weapon to bring about Baal's destruction. Because of this strategy, the Drakes, the lesser kin who shared Baal's blood, were transformed into sacrifices. The stone dragons placed these beasts across the land with careful intent. Drakes ceased to be treated as ordinary enemies. They became bait, designated targets in a grand ritual engineered to convert human ambition into a deadly weapon for the ancient dragons. Drake hearts were offered across the lands. They were presented as tempts for ambitious warriors, pulling men into rituals that stripped away their human nature while offering them raw dragon strength. Eating a dragon's heart means introducing a wild presence into mortal flesh, and that internal presence rarely remains quiet. The ancient language recorded around Baal's own heart makes this threat clear, proving how far he stood above lesser beasts. Even after a warrior devours it, Baal's thumping heart continues to resist all control, refusing to grow weak. Old inscriptions warn that the fire burning inside his heart will eventually consume the physical body and soul of the devourer. This exchange shares nothing with the gentle requests of prayer. It stands as the delayed revenge of a beast far too violent to be digested by mortal flesh. Even with such danger, these altars never stand deserted. The promise remains intoxicating to mortal minds, offering what feels like the purest form of communion. It promises the complete satisfaction of hunger, a ritual that makes a warrior feel like a true dragon for a brief moment. The warriors who journey to these desolate sites lack wisdom. They travel here because life in the lands between has left them feeling small, and because the open sky once belonged to dragons. They feel a desperate desire to claim even a small fraction of that ancient glory for themselves. Yet, the ancient practice of communion did not begin with the fleshy hearts of drakes alone. Ancient tales describe an earlier form of communion that possessed a harsh sanctity. The initial warriors who took part in these rites did not eat the soft hearts of lesser drakes. Instead, they consumed stone hearts taken directly from ancient dragons. By swallowing those stone relics, those early mortals transformed into a new shape for the first time in history. A stone heart seems unnatural, lacking any pulse or life. Yet these relics exist across the world, carrying a dark implication. They prove that even immortal dragons could be reduced into portable objects, items crafted for use, passed from hand to hand like a key to open hidden power. The dragon priestess guarding the altar demonstrates the most disturbing aspect of this reality. Her own heart, carved of unadorned rock, can turn human flesh into the likeness of an ancient dragon. Legend states that death alone can reverse this transformation. That stone heart preserves her origin. She was once a majestic dragon herself. She willingly surrendered her immortal form to inhabit fragile flesh, choosing weakness so she could assist in the destruction of Baal. This reveals that communion is more than a mortal crime committed against dragonkind. In truth, it serves as a deliberate strategy devised by the dragons themselves. An ancient being willingly embraced physical weakness, stepping down to guide human warriors toward a goal that the Elder Brood could never accomplish through pride alone. Another relic, simply named the Rock Heart, follows the same pattern of physical transformation. Once a warrior sheds their metal armor and mortal certainty, their body transforms into a draconic form. From that shape, borrowed breaths and dragon magic strike with greater force. Items like these do not resemble folk magic. They function like engineered doctrine, forming a deliberate path designed to create a specific type of warrior. A hunter who will continue climbing peaks, tracking beasts, and devouring hearts long after wisdom would have advised retreat. Above all these rituals and ancient wounds, Baal stands as the central cause. He is called a vile plague, a title earned because he shattered the sacred myth the stone dragons told about their own kind. Gravel scales were supposed to guarantee absolute supremacy, yet Baal survived without them and reached the Dragon Lord's throat. Sovereign rule was supposed to remain unquestioned, yet Baal challenged that rule with teeth and fire until his challenge took physical form: severed heads, torn tails, and scars that neither storms nor centuries could erase. Because of Baal, the hatred of the elder dragons grew organized. That hatred took shape as stone altars, appointed priestesses, judges of character, and gravel stone weapons forged to cut through dragonhide with devastating effect. The dragons created a system that looked at mortals without seeing allies or subjects. They saw short-lived, hungry instruments capable of committing the sacrilege required to slay a rebellious dragon that refused to die cleanly. This reality exposes the true tragedy of dragon communion. It flatters mortals with promises of rising power, while quietly using them as fuel for an ancient war. The cult feeds them hearts and calls the act worship, yet Baal's legacy ensures an outcome of reverse consumption. Fire rises from inside the devourer to reclaim what was taken, until the warrior becomes a burnt husk for the power they consumed. Even if a warrior survives long enough to claim victory, the ancient warning waits quietly, like an ember hidden under ash. Dragon Lord Placidusax rests beyond time, yet Baal's rebellion gave his eternal weight a broader purpose. His vigil represents more than waiting for a god who departed. It stands as the preservation of an ancient grudge that built lasting institutions, a grudge that trained mortals to consume dragon hearts for a conflict the stone dragons could not finish using their own claws. High on a jagged peak, where the earth remembers ancient heat, the rebellious dragon endures as the living half of a shared wound. Broken, furious, and unbowed, Baal waits while the world continues to send hungry warriors upward, one by one, toward the oldest wound. And so our story ends for tonight. The tale of the dragons of the lands between could last far longer than a single night, for they are more than beasts to be tempted, or lords who seek only glory and dominion. They are woven into the world itself, so deeply rooted that they appear in every aspect of the lands between. They hate, they rage, they love, and, for that love, They are willing to sacrifice themselves. And the poetry of it all is this: their age did not end in war, nor invasion, nor even a fatal wound. It ended in abandonment. High in the sky, amid an endless storm, Dragon Lord Placidusax still endures, still waits, locked in an eternal vigil. He does not wait for challengers, for he has known more than enough of them. Yet one day, a Tarnished will intrude upon his lonely throne and bring an end long deferred, slain by a would-be lord who devours all in their path.